How's Tennessee going to fare in 2024? The big 2022 season, little bit of a pullback, but not much. Eric Cain locked on Vols. How was last season for Tennessee, and how does it set the stage for this year? Because we're going to predict their record game by game. We may not agree on every single game, but does this feel like a playoff or bust sort of season for the Vols?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee's certainly in the conversation to be in the college football playoff. I think it's fair to say they're on the outside looking in right now, but certainly can, play themselves. I mean, their schedule is going to allow them to play themselves into the college football playoff, in my opinion. So last year, 8 wins in the regular season, finished off with a big win in the Citrus Bowl, and that was that was a disappointing season because Tennessee had one really, really good season the year before. After 15 years of just wandering the desert. So expectations are always high here. They're even higher now with Josh Heupel. The floor is significantly higher when an 8-win regular season is a disappointment. That means you're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think the floor has definitely been raised, but let's talk about the ceiling. So they have one of the most interesting non-conference games in the country in week 2. It's a neutral site in the state of North Carolina, but not at NC State's stadium. Still, that's advantage Wolfpack in terms of proximity to the game's location. But they start with Chattanooga. All right, nothing crazy is going to happen there in their first game. But as I have gone through and predicted every team's record, Eric, on this show, I reserve the right at this moment in time in August to rule a game a toss-up, as it were. For those listening, I did a little coin flip motion, but I don't actually have. I should have had a quarter ready to just flip it up and got the little spinning noise into the mic and such. I am high on NC State, and this is not me down on Tennessee. I think I'm kind of neutral. Like, I think Tennessee's solid. I'm just kind of like, I got a couple questions like, what's the defense going to be like? Is it really good enough? How good is Nico over the course of a season? Those are questions, not doubts. They're just serious questions I have. I think that NC State game is the one that I look at on here, and I think it is a toss-up. I know the Vols are favored. I think that's fair. I just think NC State is a really good program right now.
I think Tennessee wins by 2 scores.
2 scores. Ho, 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 ho.
And that's,
Okay.
I think NC State's a good program. They're a top 25 program. It's going to be a huge game, and I don't think Tennessee's just going to blow them out, but I do think Tennessee will win comfortably, simply because I think Tennessee's roster is just significantly better. And I will say this, first of all, because I haven't done my deep dive into the Wolfpack like I will leading up to the game, but I know it got significantly better at quarterback. I know it ended last year really strong. I know that you got some talent via the portal as well. I don't think NC State's going to be a bad football team at all. But I think Tennessee fans will outnumber Wolfpack fans for sure. Even though the game's in Charlotte, proximity-wise is close to NC State, but I think the Tennessee faithful will be overpowering for NC State. I think Tennessee's roster is significantly better, and especially early in the season with a new quarterback for NC State. Yes, Tennessee has a new quarterback as well, but he's been in the system. He's played a very veteran team. I think Tennessee's going to be further along at that point than NC State. And then towards the end, I think Tennessee will pop in another touchdown or whatever, and will win comfortably. So I think Tennessee wins by 2 touchdowns. 2 scores at least, and when you look back, I think it'll be a good win for Tennessee.
The quarterback system that Nico Iamaleava is playing in is a good one. There is a strong track record here. I think Josh Heupel is a good offensive mind. I think it's a little hard to play with in EA College Football 25. The wide splits take a little bit too long to develop in the game, but that's, of course, video game and not real life. Tennessee's still a good team over there. But I almost have fewer questions about Grayson McCall, who has not been playing at the Power 4 level, but has been an exceptional Group of 5 quarterback over the last couple of seasons, and high 60s completion percentage guy. He's got a great array of weapons. I think Dave Dorn and company have done a really, really good job. I think right now I've got that game down as a toss-up. So then they come home and they play Kent State, and I think they win that one. And then SEC play begins. And I think I see 3 losses in here for Tennessee. And I can see them going 9-3 if they win that NC State game and pushing for a playoff spot. I don't think 9-3 is going to get teams as close to the playoff as they would like it to. I think you'll be in that 13-14 range, but you'll forget that there are auto bids, or you could have a bid stealer like I talked about on yesterday's show. But that first SEC game at Oklahoma, That's not an easy place to go win a football game, Eric. And I've got the Sooners winning that football game in a battle of good young quarterbacks and early but not first-year head coaches with their programs that are in a good place. I like the Sooners. I don't love them, but I like them at home.
Yeah, I mean, the way you view this NC State game is the way I view this Oklahoma game in terms of that's going to be the tone setter for this team. And again, I'm not trying to diminish NC State. I just think Tennessee's going to end up winning comfortably. Going on the road, a true road environment. We talked about this game a couple weeks ago. That will be Nico Iamaleava's first true road game. First one. SEC lid lifter early in the season. I think that's going to be the Josh Heupel narrative there. I think that's going to be a massive, massive football game. I anticipate Oklahoma being favored to win that going into game week. I do, being at home. I think Tennessee's certainly good enough to win that game. I don't like Oklahoma's offensive line. I think Tennessee's defense overall is better because I think Tennessee's front seven, the defensive line specifically, is one of the best in the country. It's the deepest in the country, no doubt. They play 13 players, and of course you got James Pierce. There's a lot that I like about Tennessee more than Oklahoma, but I do believe that's going to be a huge one. So that would be considered a toss-up for me. I'll pick Tennessee to win that one. This is a Volunteers podcast, at least mine is. So I'll pick Tennessee to win that one, but that is the tone setter for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a fascinating matchup. The Oklahoma crowd will have an extra level of juice, I imagine, for that first SEC home game. Not that they aren't always fired up in Norman. They do a great job, but I like Jackson Arnold. The question will come down to the offensive line. Can Oklahoma's offensive line hold up against the Tennessee front? Because there are a lot of new faces. You know, they brought in Branson Hickman from SMU, but still a lot of new guys up front protecting that young quarterback. Then
this will be, if not the best, one of the top two defensive lines that Oklahoma offensive line will see all year. So I smacked in the face right from the get-go.
That's the question I don't have about Tennessee's defense and why I'm kind of lukewarm on them. It's not the defensive line. It's kind of everything else of I'm not expecting it to be bad, but are you going to play with the big dogs? So then you go at Arkansas. I think that's a win. At home against Florida, I think that's a win as well. Florida is the first of 4 consecutive home games here for the Vols. I think they are going to lose just one of them, and that's the Alabama game before they beat Kentucky and Mississippi State. And I'm just bullish on Kalen DeBoer. I have been fooled into thinking his team was going to lose a particular game too many times. I've got the Tide going into Knoxville and avenging, for those players that are still on the roster from a couple seasons ago, that 2022 thriller.
Just like I think Oklahoma could be favored game week, with being home, big SEC game. Depending on where these two teams are, I could easily see Tennessee being favored at home for the third Saturday in October. You need to take care of NC State, you need to take care of Oklahoma, and you've got to beat Florida. Florida's not a good football team. Billy Neighbors going to be coaching for his life, but
they're not a bad one, though. They're not a bad football team. They're just not a great one.
They're certainly not as bad as everybody wants to make them out to be. I guess my point is Tennessee is a better football team, so much better in so many different areas. But in this rivalry, we've seen, it doesn't matter the year, it doesn't matter who's better. Florida has Tennessee's number. I know the last time they played at Neyland Stadium, Tennessee won. But even in that game, Tennessee tried to hand it to Florida. My point is that is a game where you can never just assume a win. So that's a huge game. But Tennessee should win that game. Alabama, I think it's a coin flip. I really, really do. Reasons you mentioned for Kellen DeBoer, this is still a Nick Saban-built roster. I know there's been some additions and all that. But how does Jalen Milroe adjust to this offense for Kellen DeBoer is a very big question I have for the early season on into the midseason. So I think that's going to be huge. I'm not going to say Tennessee's going to lose that game, but I think that it's a huge game. I know I'm skipping ahead here. The only game that I see on the schedule where I'm just going to say Tennessee's going to lose is Georgia.
Yeah, on the road at Georgia, they're 17-point dogs. I've got that one sharpied in as a loss. I don't think anybody's going into Athens and winning this season. And I think those are the games that Tennessee can lose. I feel incredibly confident. They almost have a Penn State feel to me, where I feel incredibly confident that they're going to beat Arkansas and Florida and Kentucky and Mississippi State and UTEP and Vandy. I've got no questions there. But I think Georgia's a loss. I think Bama will get them. And Oklahoma and NC State probably define their season. And I think they lose at least one, which is why I've got Tennessee at 9-3 or 8-4. But if they win that NC State game early in the year, I think they end up 9-3 and push for a playoff spot, but I don't know if they make it.
You win that Oklahoma game, assuming you beat NC State. You win that Oklahoma game, you have afforded yourself another loss on the schedule and still be in good enough shape.
I agree.
That's why it's so important. I am closer to 10 wins than I am to 8 wins. 9-3 is a safe bet. That's kind of where I'll probably do my official season prediction. But early August start of camp, give me 10-2. Give me 10-2 Tennessee.
He wants the
college
vibes.
football playoff team, 10-2 Volunteers. And the tempo setter at Oklahoma is what started it all.
Yeah, 10-2 probably gets you into the playoff if you're not in the SEC title game. Probably especially if you're not in the SEC title game where you'd have a chance for another loss. But if your losses are to Bama and Georgia, but you win at Oklahoma and essentially a road game against NC State, and they end up being an 8-9 win team, I think that resume probably gets you in as long as you don't have any other major scare jobs against a Mississippi State or a Kentucky or somebody like that. Eric Cain, locked on Vols. He's got him 10-2. I am a 9-3, 8-4 coin flip. All comes down to those 2 early games. NC State, Oklahoma. Can't wait. It's right around the corner. Football is, as this show airs, 18 days away from starting. Eric, thanks for the time.
Thanks as always, man.
We're going to the G5 ranks next, who are going to send a team to the playoff. Oregon State isn't going to be one of those teams, at least not this year. How will they fare in their first season as a de facto Mountain West school? That's coming up next.